All right, we're going to kick it off, and we're going to go old school because we have no AV people here this evening. So this should be fun. So if when we get to the point where you're asking questions, hopefully everybody grabbed a hard copy of one of the presentations in the lobby. There will be another one that Mr. DeFrias will be doing that we didn't print out, but what we'll answer questions. But when we get to the part of the presentation where we're answering questions, if people can just stand up and tell us who you are and where you're from. Most of you guys we know, but if you can just do that. So I thought I'd kick it off, first of all, by introducing everybody that's here tonight with us and answering a few, I would call, extremely FAQs. So we've got Mr. Campbell, who is the chair of the planning board. We've got Mr. DeFrias, who is our town planner. We have Jade Tallerman, who is our town council. We have Ed Heel, who is a fellow select board member, Ann Rain, who is a fellow select board member, and last but not least, we've got Lisa Green, who is our town administrator. So one of the questions that we've been getting asked frequently is, I thought we voted no. Why are you guys bringing this back to us? If the answer is pretty simple. At the time that we originally voted this, the legislative landscape was not known at all. We did not know how the Supreme Court case was going to be finalized. We also did not know how our own case would be finalized. We did not know what the state was going to do. There were a lot of sort of open-ended questions, many of which have now been answered. So the Supreme Court case, and Lisa and Tony will both be going over some of this, but I just want to recap high level. The Supreme Court case was not found in favor of Milton. It was found in favor of the state, and they ruled that this is legal, that the state is able to do this. We joined 4 or 5 other towns in a class action suit to state that this was an unfunded mandate. And we were told that they did not rule in our favor again. We were told, no, that's not the case. And so that was not successful. We were able to do that using our existing town council because it was a class action. It was several other towns, and so it didn't end up being super expensive. So we were able to do that within our normal legal budget. And then we had interim compliance up until July, and immediately after July interim compliance was stopped, we were told every single grant that you guys have just applied for, the ones that we told you that you were getting, you're not getting them anymore because you're not compliant. So right away we felt the effects of not doing this. And again, Lisa and Tony will get into some of this. And one of the things I've heard from a lot of people is, we don't care about that grant money. It's for stupid things anyway. What do we care? Not true. One of the grants was supplemental Chapter 90 money, not grant, but money from the state, which is for our roads. And that was to the tune of about $170,000. About another $250,000 was for an energy grant that we got for the police station. And if you guys have attended town meeting, and even if you haven't, if you look back at the records, you'll see that our HVAC system up at the police station is not only not energy efficient, but it's in a constant state of repair. And it really drains the police budget from using that money for things they otherwise would use it for. So the chief came to us and said, like, is there anything we can do about this? We applied, we were given the grant to put mini splits and improve the HVAC system up there, and we no longer have that. There were also protective vests for the police that we had a grant out there for that we were not going to get. I'm just hitting the high level thing. So if people think that that there's anything sacrosanct, and one of the other things I've been hearing is like, oh, it's only housing grants, and who cares? We don't want the housing grants. It's not only housing grants. It's literally every Massachusetts grant by the state. You now need to sign when you're receiving the grant, if they even don't figure out ahead of time that you're not compliant. You have to sign saying, we're in compliance with all Massachusetts general laws. And we can't because this is one of the Massachusetts general laws. Another thing that we did was at the May 2025 town meeting, we said to people, if you guys want us to fight this, if this is the hill you guys want to die on, because we want to represent you, we want to do what you want us to do, then we're going to need money to fight this. And we had a $275,000 legal line item there, and town meeting voted it down. So to us, that was sort of putting in question, well, gee, you want us to fight it, but we don't have the money to fight it because we have to hire special counsel. Our town council has already told us, once this goes past this point, you need somebody who's specialized in this litigation. This would not be something that they would represent us in. And although we did have people say things like, well, we don't have to really respond, we could just let it go. No, that would be a dereliction of duty, and if we don't respond, then they will issue a default summary judgment. We don't want that, because then we have no ability to influence any conversation. So at this upcoming town meeting warrant, town meeting, we have the MBTA Community Act item as a warrant item, and if people don't want that, then we've got $275,000 for legal fees, and we ask that you pick a lane. If you don't want MBTA, you need to give us the money to fight it. We can't fight it and have no money to fight it. It's an incredibly unfair position to put this select board and the rest of the staff in. So those are some of the highlights. I also want to mention that we supported Ken Sweezy had several bills that he had proposed, and we wrote a letter saying, like this is going to be a hardship on us, and we support it. And today we heard from Ken Sweezy's office that all of his bills, or at least the two major ones that were kind of getting legs for him, have been sent to be studied, and that they are not going to get past this legislative session. So I know people are kind of holding out hope for that. And another thing that we've heard is there's a ballot initiative, and I think people are planning on collecting signatures at town meeting, and that's fine, that's well and dandy, but people need to understand what the timing is. For a ballot initiative, the earliest it's going to show up on the ballot will be November of 2026. They are coming for us come December 31st of 2025. They will sue us. So that leaves us from the beginning of the year till whenever if it passes, if the ballot passes and is successful, that would leave us a whole year that we'll still be fighting the state in court. So I just wanted to kind of lay some of those things out, most of which have been in my Facebook posts anyway. So this may be a bit redundant, but wanted to lay that out. And what we thought the best way to kind of handle this for tonight was, I really want to give credit to the planning board, and in particular to Mr. DeFrias, because they have spent hours looking at the regulations, holding public hearings, asking for input, working within the framework that the state has given us. We even hired a consultant using a grant and have them look at it. We even passed this by the state, so we know we've got sort of tacit agreement that if this passed at town meeting, that the state is okay with it. There's not going to be a second bite at the apple. But I really do want to, I know if you're somebody who doesn't want this and you're against it, whatever, the planning board has done their job. They have really done an admirable job, and I do want to take my hat off to them. This is part of what they are elected to do, and they have done their job. They've held the hearings, and they've done the best they could to create a zone that will have a minimal impact on the town. So with that, I'm going to turn it over. I don't know which of you guys is hitting it first or not.
I'll talk.
All right. And then we're hitting it over to Lisa after you guys.
You got it.
All right.
So thank you very much to Laura. My name is Joe Campbell. I'm the chair currently on the planning board of the town of Hanson. I've been there for just about 10 years. And this has taken up the last 2.5 to 3 years of my time and tenure on the planning board. It's been kicked around actually just slightly previous to that when we had another town planner that was in place. And I can't stress enough what Laura was saying about how much this has taken up our taxpayer money in our position for our town planner to be paid a salary to do these things that are coming down the pipe for the planning office to conform to the stuff that has happened. It's probably a number that we wouldn't be able to figure out, because that's how long Tony has spent trying to make sure that the town is in compliance with these things. Thank you very much for coming here this evening. It's a lot more showing than the last time, and I'm hoping that the third one that we have is going to be even greater than this. I can't say thank you enough to each and every one of you that are sitting here this evening, because you're here to discuss facts. Facebook is a cesspool right now as far as opinion and how these things are going. Instagram, all of the social media stuff. We can't fire back as elected officials on Facebook and things like that because it could constitute an open meeting violation. But this is why we have these forums here. So I want to personally thank each and every one of you for coming here. If at any point we get talking and you hear me and I get elevated, it's just my militant background coming up. I get very passionate about these things. I get extremely passionate about this because I know for a fact, and I've seen the three things that I was looking for at the start of this that were getting ready to happen, and they actually have come to fruition. There was a point where I had a conversation with Tony, and one of the first things I said was, when do we start seeing any kind of issue on a form where there's a checkbox or a sentence that says, is the town in compliance with the state's mandate? And that happened about 1.5 years ago. That was the first thing that I saw. The second thing that I looked for was just exactly how far of a push is this going to happen with the state coming at us? How hard and heavy are they looking to push something that was actually a previous administration's start? It was actually the previous administration that brought this forward. And with the new administration that's come on board, they have become very aggressive with it for multitudes of reasons. Rideability, affordable housing, all those things that they believe that the state needs. And then the third thing that I looked for personally was when it comes down to it, and we actually want to talk brass tacks, is the town going to support the town legislation and the town executives to be able to push forward and fight this? And that was our last town meeting. All of those things I looked for and finally decided myself personally as a citizen and one of your co-town citizens. I said to myself, at this point, this is something that needs to change at a later date, because the juggernaut that is coming to us and it's going to hit us, and it's going to hit us hard, is just around the corner. Laura spoke at the last meeting that we had in regards to a conference, and thank you for the invitation to be able to go to that Zoom conference. I attended that. I've been trying to attend on board as a representative of an elected official for all of you that are here. During that Zoom meeting with representation from the Attorney General's office, we absolutely flat out heard that the litigation will happen. It's not a matter of if any longer, it's just a matter of when. When? Well, that's going to be in December, when we're no longer in compliance. Your planning board, the 5 members of your planning board, agree wholeheartedly, all 5 of us agree with everything that's being said out in the world of social media. We believe that this is an overreach from the state legislation. We believe that the state legislation hasn't spent one moment looking at the town of Hanson itself on a granular level to say, just effectively, how could this be on a town such as ours? If, and I use that as a capital if 750 units were to be built. Now, the caveat that comes along with that if is that the actual number in reality and real? Probably not. But I'm disappointed in the fact that the town is painted, or the state has painted each and every town with such broad strokes, and the town planning board voted such. We even made it to our last public hearing, which we closed, and then the planning board took a vote of no action because we are trying to represent the citizens of town. After speaking with council and after speaking with a town administrator, because this is a repetitive petition, meaning that it's coming back to the town, we have to take action. We have to have some form of opinion. And the form of opinion that we had to our select board was that it should go back to the citizens at town meeting. So to caveat what Laura was saying about the select board's decision, not only has things changed enough that it needs to come back to the citizens, which any bylaw change in the town of Hanson should happen that way. And I would hope that in the future it would, that we are trying to maintain the fact that your representation in town government is listening. But we also understand the other side of it. We also understand the other side, and I don't want to make an oversimplification, but we understand that the other side of the impact of drawing an imaginary line on the ground otherwise known as a zone, is just going to be just that. It's going to be just a zone. Right now, as it stands, there isn't a single person, including the landowner, who appeared at our public hearing looking to open up a permit to build. On top of that, I wanted to get everybody here tonight, if there's anything set up here that's used as an acronym, or Laura was saying Chapter 90 money, and she explained about roads. If for any reason anybody that is sitting here doesn't understand something that is said, please let us know. We will make sure that it's defined, because I remember 10 years ago sitting, 11 years ago sitting, and trying to have somebody explain to me what Chapter 40 was. I do know what it is now, so I would feel horrible if somebody left the room not knowing what an acronym was, or MGL. Council's here to give us understanding of MGL, which is Mass General Law. When Laura was referring to the Supreme Court, she's referring to the Massachusetts Supreme Court, not the federal Supreme Court. So please, 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 if you have a question, make sure that you ask it and that you have an understanding when you leave of what the answer is. We do have some facts and figures of a stare and compare that we do know in regards to a very large complex that was just recently built, and I want to make sure that everybody here has those figures. The two complexes that were built by the Egan Corporation down on Main Street, to the left of the Cranberry Building, the tax revenue for 965 is $57,578 that we received from that one building. $57,578. Now keep in mind that that building is a mixed-use building. There is commercial on the first floor and there is residential on the second floor. Then 999 Main Street, the tax revenue to the town is $57,892 and some change. So those two buildings, if you could think of those two buildings, both of those buildings are bringing around $58,000 as far as tax revenue, keeping in mind that it is a mixed-use building. So that commercial down on the first floor may change depending on what kind of businesses are in there. The residential would stay the same. But if you could take those two buildings, that's a figure that we know. That's hard facts that we have from the assessor's office, just a minute. Hard facts that we have from the assessor's office to be able to get some kind of comparison as to what that brings into our town. There's been a ton of talk at all of our public hearings and our planning board meetings and anything that we've had where people have tried to make an assessment on something that we can't touch. It's not tangible because it hasn't been built. Will something like this have an impact on fire, police, the school department, highway? Of course it will, of course it will. But so won't any other subdivision, 40B development, whether it's a subdivision and single lot, 40B development, a 55-plus community, an adjustment to the industrial, but anything that we do in this town has an impact on all of those resources. The significance of those impacts are very hard and very difficult to make tangible until we're in a process of being able to understand what the assessor's office would have. The impacts, hearing about the impact on the police department or the fire department. So those are things, but we do know that a building such as the two that are on Main Street, they're about $58,000 annually that are coming into the town. So thank you for coming tonight. To point out to one of Laura's discussions in regards to having to litigate this after December. There isn't a single company that's come down, not our own counsel. Our own counsel has said, we're not looking we wouldn't be able to litigate this for you. There isn't one single practice out there knocking on the town hall door saying, we'd love to help you out. So keep that in mind as well. This is one of those things that people are trying to stay clear of as best as possible. So thank you for giving me a few moments. And again, I appreciate everybody being here. Town administrator.
Did you want Tony to talk about the
Sure.
zone?
Yep, and then I'll
Yep.
follow up.
Okay.
Right. Tony first.
So, can everybody hear me, first off? Yes. Great, thank you. My name's Tony DeFrias, I'm the town planner, and I started working, as Mr. Campbell said, I came to Hanson in 2021, in October 2021, and not long after that, we started working on this MBTA zoning bylaw because it was just beginning, and the state had given deadline requirements and so forth, so we started to get into it. So I have, which unfortunately you can't see, is a PowerPoint presentation, and the information I'm going to give you this evening, I'll take this PowerPoint presentation and I'll put it up on our planning board webpage, and I'll date it with today's date, so anyone, excuse me, anyone can go on there and get a copy of it. So the information I'm going to give you from this is all information that you can find on the state's webpage. If you go to mass.gov, mass.gov, and in the search engine you type in MBTA zoning, it'll take you to a webpage, and it's going to give you a slew of information. It'll give you the history, the current regulations, the court cases, etc. So I would suggest that everyone that has an interest go onto that webpage and take a look for yourself and read for yourself what's out there. So I'm going to get into my presentation. So as Mr. Campbell said, you know, in January 2021, Governor Baker signed an economic development package into law, which is now known as Chapter 358 of the Act of 2020. It just so happens within that act was a revision to the zoning act, which is known as Mass General Law Chapter 40A. And you're going to hear, as Mr. Campbell said, there's a lot of different numbers. So Mass General Law 40A is the zoning act. That was a piece of legislation that was created in the 30s. It was changed in the 50s. It's changed in the 70s. But in the 50s, and so this was a piece of legislation. And what it did is it created a format for zoning that each town would then adopt. And then under that, they would create zoning for their own town. So they would say, in our town, our lots, we're going to have zoning districts, and within those districts, your lots have to be X amount of feet wide. They have to have X amount of square feet of land area. Buildings have to be X amount of feet from the property lines. So Hanson adopted it, I believe it was 1956. You're also going to hear stuff about what's called 40B. That's the Affordable Housing Act. And I believe that's been around for about 40 years. Totally different from 48. You might hear MGL 41. Section 81 deals with the subdivision control law. Again, legislative act. These are all legislative acts. So within 48, the Zoning Act, there's different sections. They created a new section called Section 3A. And this is where they put the MBTA requirements. So, what it states is that an MBTA community shall have a zoning ordinance or bylaw that provides for at least one district of reasonable size. And what do they consider reasonable size? They consider you have capability of 15 units per acre, and it has to have 50 acres, and it has to be within half a mile of the train station. So one thing that it does not require, and I've heard this before, but there is no requirement within this zone. And just so everybody knows, this is going to be an overlay district. And what is an overlay district? So if you were to look at our zoning map, you'll see a lot of pretty different colors. Each color represents a zone. You'll have Residence A, Residence B, Business, Commercial, Industrial. You'll also see in our zoning map an area that has crosshatching. And at the bottom of the map, you'll see where it says Flex Overlay Zone. Each one of those districts and that Flex Overlay Zone have requirements that was set up by the town, voted in at town meeting. This will also be an overlay district. And what does that mean? Just what it says. You'll have a base map. You'll have a zone that you've created. It could be Residence A, Residence B, whatever. Wherever this lays on top, it becomes a secondary zoning that someone could choose to exercise. So for instance, if someone that lived in that zone, or someone sold that land to a developer in that zone, and they came into town, they could either A, use the base zoning, or they could apply the flexible overlay zone. or the MBTA zone. That MBTA overlay district has requirements. We require a certain frontage, we require land area, we require building height, we require parking requirements, we have setback requirements. These are all things that we created that are regulatory within that overlay district. So there's no requirement for that overlay district to have affordable housing. It's right in the law, and that's known as 760 CMR. CMR stands for Code of Massachusetts Regulation, section 72.041B. And again, if you go to the state website that I was telling you about, there is a copy of 760 CMR. Those are the regulations that the state was told they hadn't done correctly and they had to go back and do. There's no requirement that it has to be affordable. We can require there be some affordable in there. We did require 10%, but we also put the caveat in there, was known as fee in lieu of. And what that means is that if a developer or one of the folks that owns land within that zoning overlay district chose to not do any affordable units, they would pay the town an amount of money. That money would go to the Hanson Housing Authority, who oversees creation of affordable housing in town. And the Hanson Housing Authority would then use that money to create housing, something along the lines of Meeting House Lane or LZ Thomas. So there's no requirement. The reason why it was put in there, but one thing we'd have to do is create a housing trust. Well, the reason why that was put in there is because under 40B, every community in Massachusetts has to have 10% of their housing stock listed as affordable. So you'll see towns, obviously the major cities have over 10%, but you'll see small towns under 10%. And then folks will hear, well, there's a 40B project coming in, and how did it get built? Because as long as each community doesn't get over that 10% hump, they can never really say no to those projects. So what this allows in these type of districts is for you to sort of get to that 10% quicker. And if you get to that 10%, then you can say to 40B projects, no, we've met our requirement. We're not interested anymore. We've met our requirement. So this, again, it's an overlay district. So it has to be, and being an overlay district, it can't be a collection of small, non-contiguous parcels, and at least one portion has to be 25 acres. So we meet all that. The 750 number that everyone keeps hearing, where did that come from? So each community was given a determination by the Housing and Livable Communities. You have rapid transit, you have commuter rail, you have basically commuter adjacent. So we're listed as a commuter rail town. The regulations say that 15% of your housing stock, or 750, whichever is the greater number. As of 2020, when that was the last census they used, Hanson had approximately 3,960 housing units, houses. 15% of that comes out to 594. So whichever number is higher, it comes out to the 750. Where does the 750 come from? If you take the 50 acres and you multiply it by that 15 units per acre, it comes out to 750. So that's what they call the floor. Now, it's important to understand that this district and the capacity is, it's always been said, this is not a mandate that the town has to create housing, nor is it a requirement that the town has to create infrastructure for these housing. Any type of housing that is in that zone is going to be all driven by the private sector. The parcels that are within that zone, there's 11 parcels. They're all privately owned except for one. There's one that's owned by the town, by the Hanson Housing Authority. And we're already doing a study to see if there's anything that can even be put there. The area also has significant issues with the different sites, because what has to happen is anything that goes in that area, it can't supersede the Wetlands Protection Act. It cannot supersede the Sanitary Code, which is Title V, because Hanson doesn't have any municipal sewer. It can't supersede it. it has to follow the laws required within that law for setbacks, etc. So all these things have to be followed. It also has to follow, obviously, the building code.
37.
So it's not as if you can just come in and do whatever you want. So the area that it's in town was chosen because, one, it meets the criteria, it's within half a mile, and if you were to look at a map, you would also notice that to the south of where this is, there's the swamp, the Great Cedar Swamp. To the west, there's a lot of property that's wet, very wet. And the state looks at that. It's not like you can just, for instance, we couldn't put this zone over McQuon Pond and say, we created our zone. They'd go, well, you can't do that. You really, you can't, you're never going to do anything there. But the restriction, each one of these sites will determine what you can actually get out of it. And so that number 750 is thrown out there. You have wetlands on those sites. You have to meet Title V on those sites. Part of the zone falls within what's known as the Zone 2 Wellhead Protection District, which is something complete. This is another tighter regulations when it comes to septics. So would you ever see that number in that area? Coming from an engineering background, an engineer might say, well, challenge accepted. But realistically, probably not. But no one can ever sit here with certainty, but I could feel comfortable saying probably not. The other thing is, what the state is looking for with this type of with the housing that goes in this area is what they call the missing middle. So if you were to look on their spectrum, you have single families here, you have huge apartment buildings here. They want something in the middle, being duplexes, triplexes, courtyard, townhouses. And if you grew up in the city, you may have grown up in a three-decker. I did. I grew up in a three-decker in the city. And that's what my neighborhood was. It was all three families. And there was a lot of neighborhoods like that. And you see it in Boston, you know. That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for high-rise apartment buildings, and they're saying not single families. They want something in the middle. They don't want anything bigger than or taller than, let's say, 2 or 3 stories at the top, at tops.
Thank you.
So, who's on slide
Thank you.
5? You can pick that up. Hold the ball, go. Hello? So, I might run out of voice.
Run out of gas?
There we go. Can you? Oh,
You heard it.
hello?
There you go.
You can hear me? Okay, great. So, the other thing that you hear is as of right. What does as of right mean? And there's a gentleman in the audience that was at that that asked that question. It's a good question. So what does as of right mean? If you were to look at our current flexible overlay zone, we allow within that zone a mixed use or multi-unit buildings. But that's done by a special permit through the Zoning Board of Appeals. As of right means someone could go to the building inspector and ask for a building permit. Obviously, they would have to submit plans. But what we do control is what's known as site plan review. So that any project that would come through would go to site plan review, which would be, in this case, the Zoning Board of Appeals. And they would determine if the project is allowed as of right. It can regulate things like vehicle circulation, architectural design, building screening. What they can't do is they can't deny the project, but they can impose conditions that make it, better for the area. They can't stop it, but they can impose conditions and they can regulate it. And that is very similar. As I said earlier, this is Section 3A of the Zoning Act. The section before this is known as Section 3 of the Zoning Act. You'll also may hear it referred to as the Dover Act. And within that section, it controls things like solar farms, battery storage farms, accessory dwelling units. And it says that a community must allow these uses as of right, but they can reasonably regulate to protect this public. And the same thing would apply here. There would be regulations, there are regulations in place that we wrote to determine what your lot size, what your lot frontage, what's the parking, what's the building height, how to screen it. Those are all things that we controlled and we wrote in. The state did provide, one second please, the state did provide a template, but we worked with town council, Mr. Talman's office, I worked with Liz Lyden to come up with regulations that control this zone. As far as compliance with the zone, we received 2 technical assistance grants, each for $20,000, which allowed us to work with a consultant. There was basically a computer program, and you punch in all the information, and it tells you whether or not the zone you've created will conform. The first organization we worked for was our Regional Planning Council, Old Colony Planning Council, and then the second was a private consultant. So they had the software, they punched in all the numbers, and it did comply. We also then saw what is known as a preliminary review by the Housing and Livable Communities. We sent it to them and said, here's what we're thinking. And they give you a critique. They had some comments, we made some adjustments. Now that all took place prior to the 2024 Maytown meeting. Matter of fact, the week prior is when they gave us information. So, this zone, we pined over it to figure out where's the best location, how will it work. Now, if and when the zone is approved, it's good for 10 years, which is like our open space and recreation plan. And that's just basically a report, but it's has a 10-year shelf life, and then you renew it. We can also change it. As long as we do not change it where it becomes non-compliant, we can make adjustments as we see fit. And it follows the process like any other zoning amendment or any other zoning change. Sure, you have a question?
Yeah, the zoning board of appeals, I think you said, is that a state board of appeals or a town board of appeals?
That's all.
Town Board of Appeals.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if the town says you can't build here for whatever reason, we don't like the height, or we don't like the infrastructure you're setting up, can they appeal to the state?
They would, so if they went to the zoning board of appeals for site plan review, our answer is zone, exactly. Like any regulation, an applicant does have due process.
Correct.
So they could appeal the ZBA's decision to the court. Okay,
It's the same as the state. Go ahead.
so the court, and then the court,
Yeah, I know.
and then the court
But
makes
it's
the
the same as the
decision.
state.
Okay,
Once you get to the court, it's not a town thing anymore.
right, it's not. But yes, they do have due process to, like any,
Right, and we know what that does. So when the due process supposedly is enforced, they're going to override whatever the town says. And then you're back to the same thing.
Well, I think the key is what Mr. DeFries is saying is it's not that the ZBA would deny the project. It's that ZBA would say, we would like to have more landscaping, we would like to have such and such. And I'm not sure, what, I mean, I guess they could appeal that, but as long as it wasn't unreasonable, as long as we weren't being unreasonable, and it didn't look like we were intentionally trying to stop somebody from doing that, I think they'd be hard pressed to win on that.
But reasonable is a matter of opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we could argue that all day long.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what they will do. And then the state will do the same thing they're doing with this whole thing, is bribe us into doing it.
Teresa, yeah.
I was just going to ask, but right now, if we wanted to do something with the zoning board of appeals, and it was not approved, we could use due process to go to the courts.
Yes. Yes, section.
There's nothing changing.
No.
No.
They're saying due process.
Right.
So,
There was somebody that had a question as well, Ms. Lynn. Ms. Lynn, you had a question?
Oh, you can answer it.
so
Can you close these doors?
It's up to you guys. Is it intrusive?
So now what we have is, so that's how we've reached this point. So how does it affect Hanson? We'll get into the effects of noncompliance. So because of noncompliance, there's 13, basically 13, right now that was 13 and counting grants that we would not be eligible for. And we have received monies in the past from these grants for projects within town. One was it's what's known as the Brownfields Redevelopment Fund. We've received over $300,000 from that fund within the last 2 years. Site readiness program, we've received just over, I believe it's $150,000 from that fund. So it would hurt us to lose that money because it allows, whether it's the planning board or other boards of town, or departments, to use grant money for projects. For instance, if you go over to the senior center right now and you look, there's a brand new building outside the senior center. That was paid for through a grant. What you see there was paid through a grant that was $300,000, and it covered the cost of the building, the site work, electric and utilities, etc. So that was money that was used for the senior center to create space for the senior center to bring back a program that they had previously that will help residents. It'll be a place for residents to go, and caregivers of those residents to leave them in a safe location while they go and do some errands and so forth. So that benefits the residents of the town. We also have, the library is looking at a grant that they have that's $150,000. Not being MBTA compliant, that grant goes away. Fire department, and there's different departments. I'm not going to speak for all the other departments, but I can just say that there's 13 grants in counting as far as that would affect us, and some of those grants we've actually utilized. So as Mrs. Kemp had stated, the court actions. I think everyone knows about the court actions. The town of Milton was the first. They went to the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts, which determined that this law here is constitutional and that the Attorney General can enforce noncompliance. In June 2025, there was a class action, if you will, regarding the unfunded state mandate. But that was ruled against. The court rejected the challenges and said that, again, we have to meet the requirements. We had up until July 15, 2025 to be compliant. We were, let's say, compliant up to that point. And then since then, we have, that has passed. We were notified, so the Attorney General put out a second advisory in July 2025. And they had stated that they plan to take no legal action during the summer or fall against non-compliant communities that are making demonstrable and good faith efforts toward compliance. Throughout the summer and the fall town meeting season, the office will continue its work with the Keighley Driscoll administration to support both non-compliant communities and adjacent small towns with the December 31st, 2025 deadline in their efforts to adopt compliant zoning. And each community had different timelines, and this is the last of the timelines. So it goes on to say that, therefore, in January 2026, the Attorney General is prepared to bring an enforcement suit against any MBTA community that has failed to both, excuse me, give me a second. Bring an enforcement suit against any MBTA community that has failed to both adopt the required zoning and apply for a determination of district compliance with the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, which you might hear called HLC or EOHLC. we received a letter at the beginning of August stating that we were no longer in compliance. And again, I'm going to post this PowerPoint to the planning board webpage tomorrow, and again, it'll have tonight's date, so everyone can go through and take a look. And if you come back on to the third meeting, hopefully we'll have things up and running, and I'll have this up. But again, I would strongly urge anyone here, anyone listening, again, go to mass.gov, mass.gov, and within the search engine, type in MBTA zoning, and it will take you to a web page that has all the information, all the laws, all the court cases, etc. It's all there. Please read it. It can be a tedious reading, it can be a lot of reading, but read it, and it might lead you to some questions that maybe we can answer at our next forum. But read it and read for yourself what's being required, and that way you can make an informed decision when you get to town meeting. Thank you.
I don't think we had another question.
Yeah, I just want to point out that it's true that all of the grants that we're not getting are actually our own tax dollars. Because it's state funds. So I just want to point that out. So when you say no to this, right, you're actually saying no to giving the money that you're paying taxes. It's going to go to someone else. So I just want to
And I will say, we didn't get into an exhaustive list of the grants, but I will say the Economic Development Committee, again, with Mr. DeFrias's expertise, has been able to apply for several grants. And it's things we wouldn't be able to do within our normal budget. For instance, the town owns 2 pieces of property in the industrial park, and one of the things that we keep hearing from people that are buying like tax taking properties, but it would apply to this too, is, hey, the town of Hanson is taking a bath every time you guys sell a property because you guys aren't getting all the permitting in place, and so when somebody buys a piece of property from the town at auction, it's sort of like a crapshoot. They don't really know, unless they do a lot of due diligence themselves, what they can do with the property. So we had that conversation in the Economic Development Committee, and Mr. DeVries said, well, why don't we see if we can get a grant to get somebody to look at those 2 pieces of property and tell us what can be done, because they're worth a lot of money. One of them is at the end of the industrial park, sort of, I don't know, like, not the cul-de-sac part, but like the end. And then the other one is right next to the water department. Now, we'll discuss this with the select board. No decisions have been made, but the point is that's something we never would be able to do within the confines of our tax dollars. Yeah, and it's allowed us to do a lot of those types of projects because Ms. Green and Mr. DeFries have been super aggressive about getting that grant money. Another thing I wanted to mention is somebody said this to me this weekend, and it kind of stuck with me. And he said, Laura, we already, like, it's a zone. Do people understand? And I said, well, I think they do. And he said, we've got an adult entertainment zone in town. How has that worked out? Do we have anything down there? And I said, no, we don't. Because, again, that would be the industrial park, which is our zone of sin, I guess, or whatever. But, so I just wanted to kind of mention that. And with that, did anybody have any questions about Mr. DeFries? And I apologize that we weren't able to put that up. I know it was a fact-dense presentation, and it was tricky probably to follow along, but it will be on the website. We're going to turn it over to Ms. Green, and then we'll take, oh, sure, yeah.
I have a question about the 40B and the 10%. Where do we stand now as this? Tax 7%.
We're just under 5%.
Yeah.
So we have 2 projects, one that just finished up, which was Cushing Trails, and then we have an over 55 on Liberty Street adjacent to the McDonald's, which is known as Liberty Woods. And with the units that those 2 projects create, will put us just over 5%.
And the protections for that, they do sunset. They're only for a certain period of time where the town can continue to claim safe harbors, and we're at our numbers. Eventually, as those grow, they could fall off. So you would hope that there would be enough permanent 40B that would make that number above 10%, but it can sunset.
What do you mean by sunset?
End. It can sunset. It can go down, and we'd have to come up with another. The town of Hanson has actually lost a few affordable housing units that once existed in the Dunham Farm area. They ended up reselling for retail value. And instead of the town reinvesting and keeping those as 40B units, that sunset had ended. So that when it went back out to retail, that number hit us as opposed to being in our favor.
But I want to make clear, if I may, I just want to make clear that 40B, totally different, completely different set of zoning a part of the zoning. It's completely different how it runs, completely different how it works, and completely different of what you can do, which is get a lot more than this does. This is strictly an overlay district, just as any other overlay district in the community. What it does is, yes, it's a multifamily, but it's still an overlay district. 40B is a completely different animal of regulatory and regulations that allow for developers to get a lot more leeway with the state regulations and not have to follow any of the local bylaw requirements. This, they have to follow the bylaw that's for the zone.
But keep your eyes out, because we'd love to have a 40B informational as well. So, Teresa Santolucci's question.
Yeah. I just have a question about what Mr. Jeffries was saying, that if we hit the end of December and the Attorney General can come in and enforce, and there's this other idea of fighting if it doesn't pass, this 275,000, which I think would only be a drop in the bucket of
It would be,
costs-
yeah.
costs of the state.
Yeah.
But what I've been curious about is, I don't know if a simple legal case that's won, the MBTA. We would basically be filing a case to fight the MBTA when the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts says it's constitutional. It's gone through its motions. So I'm actually curious from legal counsel. I know you're not a litigator.
Well, I am.
They do litigation. They do litigation.
But you don't litigate the MBTA?
No, we do, and it's possible we would be litigating this too, but it really depends on what it ends up being. We litigated on behalf of me personally, on behalf of the town, along with 4 other towns that we represented in this unfunded mandate component of it.
And we lost.
We lost.
But to be clear, if they did litigate, it's not within our legal budget that we currently have.
Correct. I mean,
Yeah.
I think when people think, oh, we're going to get 275,000, which is about 3/4 of the library's entire yearly budget. I just want to put that out there, how much money that is to this town. There's no path for success that I've seen in the state. That's only a very small portion of legal costs that it's likely, given all of the various court cases that have come before, to be unsuccessful. So unless you want to tell me otherwise, I just think that's really important for people to understand when they're talking about fighting the MBTA.
If you think that we're making a representation that for 275,000, we're going to win the state against this, we're not.
No, I know you're
Yeah.
not, but I think people hear this, but we're going to fight it in court. And I just want to kind of highlight what that takes. That's an enormous endeavor, it's incredibly expensive, and I haven't yet seen any path of success in that.
Right, so there's been a few cases, so I don't want to go on a lengthy history of what has happened and not happened in the litigation. The first big case was the Milton case.
Yeah.
And we saw what happened there. The court not only found it to be constitutional, which I think was correctly decided, but they went even further to a place where I didn't think they would go. But this is how far this Supreme Judicial Court is willing to go to support this law, regardless of where you stand on the underlying issue, pro-housing, not pro-housing. This court went further and said it's a mandate. That's not in the statute. So the court has been very willing, both the trial court and the Supreme Judicial Court, to go further to support and back this up. The next round of cases were these unfunded mandate cases. I litigated 5 of those cases. We did it all at the same time, but we litigated 5 of those cases. There's a few towns that have a few other issues that were baked into those cases. One of those towns, which I represent, is continuing to fight a peculiar side issue, but not the unfunded mandate issue. There are 2 towns that are fighting the unfunded mandate issue. They are not strong cases. As a litigator, I'm not going to get into details or betray confidence or anything like that. Those cases overwhelmingly have a much less than 50% chance of success rate on appeal. The next round of litigation would be, in my view, even more difficult. So what would be coming down the pike if town meeting does not pass this? It would mean that the state would probably sue us. And the question is what does that suit look like? Well, first we know that we're losing the grants. So we know that the grants would be gone. And by the way, it's not, as Tony said, there are 13 listed grant programs that we know we're per se not entitled to. The state has also put out guidance that said any discretionary grant that is a competitive scoring system, so you think about any, like a library grant or school department, anything where you're competing against other communities, there's going to be a box to check. It already exists. Did you pass 3A zoning? Now, let's focus in on the school grants in particular, and this really keeps me up at night because I represent cities and towns every day. If we had a school project that we desperately needed in town, and if we don't have one now, we're going to have one, and we wanted to enter into the program for state funds, those state funds that match, which are our tax dollars, as has been pointed out, which match what town meeting would put in, are tens of millions of dollars that this town and any other town would be leaving on the table. So this isn't a $20,000 design grant, which is still important, or a smallish to mid-sized library grant, which is still important. My wife's a librarian. These things are important. You're talking about tens of millions of dollars that we would be deprived of having access to. So we know that they would enforce all of that stuff. But then the next thing that they could do, so Joe and Tony and everyone has worked really hard to develop an area within which this could go that would have as minimal an impact as possible on the development patterns in town. If the state has their way and they sue us, they're going to be seeking to appoint a special master hired by the state to develop a zone that they want. And I can guarantee you it's not going to be the zone that we want. It's going to be a zone that is designed for maximum buildability.
Could I interject, Council?
Yeah.
So if anybody's been around town, if you've been around, that would be the McQuon property, where the McQuon School used to be. That could be High Street, where we're trying to develop a beautiful town park. That could be a private property over on Hickey Hollow, just on the Hanson Whitman town line. It could be a large parcel, very large parcel, right off of Phillips and Holmes Street. Think of anybody that's in town that has a large parcel. That is potentially the impact, because it's going to be what they want.
Now, and to wrap up the point on where we would be in that litigation, it's not to say that we wouldn't, if we had the money, be ready to fight it. We have those tools to fight it. Our chances of success, which I would share confidentially with the select board and the planning board and town staff, I'm going to tell you, look at the history. As you said, there's not a lot of chances of success out there. Do I have some creative arguments against it that I would be willing to try? Am I going to sit here or at town meeting or anywhere and say, and there may be attorneys that do this, and say, we've got a rosy picture? Would I fight like crazy for this town if the town appropriated money to have us do that? I would. Do I think our chance of success is zero? I don't. Am I going to say, I've got this, don't worry, just fill my pockets with a bit of money and I can win this for you? I am not going to say that. Any attorney that does say that, and you can read about them, they're not telling you the truth. It is incredibly difficult. We spent months in just the unfunded mandate case, months, I thought we had fantastic arguments. I still think our arguments were better than the state's. We lost pretty resoundingly in those cases.
So can I just make one more comment?
I'm sorry, literally got 6 other people with their hands up.
It'll take 2 seconds. I think for people who are not in favor of MBTA, but understanding the repercussions, they could, and they want to fight it, there is another way of fighting it, and that's with the ballot initiative later. You can pass it now with our proposals, and then continue to fight for MBTA later
Yep.
through a ballot initiative. And I think people don't always get that connection. They think they have to litigate the margin. There is another way.
No, if it's repealed, then of course, we would not be exempt from the repeal of it. I've got this woman here, if you could just say your name and...
Jackie Foster, Coin Street. I'm looking at the enclosed area that's been proposed over on Phillip Street. I mean, there are homes there. Would you take the homes with eminent domain or anything?
No, in fact, Mr. DeFries spoke to that. If it's privately owned, it's privately owned. Nobody's being required to build anything. If you happen to be one of the people that owns property there and you decide that you want to do something with that, that's your prerogative, just like it would be now, but nobody is being required to do anything with that property. The town is not doing anything. We are not in a position to be taking anything by eminent domain. We have no intention of doing that. We're not doing anything with anybody's personal property.
So here is the area we're looking at to accommodate the land that we have. But is that 50 acres for the sake of the amount of housing that's been brought up, 750 units? And do those units all have to be owner occupied, or can we, like in the elderly housing, the Hanson housing on Country Road? I mean, that's all rentals. I mean, would some of these be leasing?
Again, ma'am, it's private property. We're not going to be dictating to anybody whether they rent or they don't rent, or they move their kids in, or their, grandparents in.
We're just submitting this land proposal for the sake of whoever comes in to build it.
This is just a zone, this is setting a zone that in this zone, by right, multifamily generally will not be fought by the town.
Okay, now is this the land proposal that they did a feasibility study on?
No, that's a very small parcel on Phillip Street, if that's what you're talking about.
I didn't know which one it was, I thought it
Yeah.
might be part of this.
It, Tony?
It's within the district, but it's completely separate.
Okay,
It's two separate things.
okay.
The red shirt guy.
And we've got, just a moment, sir, in the red shirt.
Pat Taylor, 174 Woodman Street. Something should be made pretty clear. The housing's coming. The housing will come. The old factory will either fall down, burn down, or get knocked down in the next 4 or 5 years.
I hope the third option. I hope the third option.
I voted on the third option when I was in the fire department 50 years ago. But the point is, that's right in the zone. If we don't pass this, I spent a lot of time talking to folks on Hanson Day the other day. It was a great time. The police department recently put in for a grant of $25,000 or so for bulletproof vests for the police officers. At the bottom of that page is that checkbox. Because the federal government stopped funding that. The state was going to fund it, but at the bottom, if you check, we're not MBTA compliant, they're not going to get those vests. Now, 19 years on the street in this town, I wear a vest every night I work. Our police officers, that's one thing. I talked to the fire department, I talked to the chief. You're going to have 2 fire engines that have to be replaced in the next 3 years. You're looking at $4 million. If we're not compliant, you're not going to get any of those grants. And if those fire engines are not replaced, your fire insurance will go up.
Between
Your property value will go
quick.
down.
I'm the guy in the green.
So we're not harming anybody by accepting this hideous piece of legislation, which it is, because it's an omnibus bill that takes in things that have nothing to do with zoning, like bulletproof vests. And if we try to fight it, we can spend all the money we want, and we're not going to win that litigation.
Just one
The
plus.
state is dug in, and they're dug in hard. So we gotta make it clear that it's going to happen anyway. Let us pick the spot. Let us pick the area that we can control, and not let the state do it. Because years ago, when we tried to fight 40B, and I know that's different, Tony, I know that's very different, we done it anyway. We, refused to give these permits, and then the state just said, yeah, you have the permit.
Yep.
So it needs to be made clear that we can either do this, or it's gonna be done to us,
Yep.
okay?
I just wanted to say, there's a meme out there that, we don't need to worry about grants. One of the things that amazed me when I got on the select board was how much Hanson has benefited from grants. And it's for a myriad of things that you did. I mean, yes, it's our tax dollars, it is, but it's not our real estate tax dollars that we're trying to run the town on. This is the stuff that we can do extra that we could never do without raising taxes horribly. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about, oh, we don't need the grants. We need the grants, we really do. And I think Steve was next.
Yeah.
Sir, did you want to say something?
I forget the question. Oh, I've heard it has to be zoned within a half mile of the train, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
A half mile. So the old school property is more than a half mile, correct?
What I was referring to when I was talking about the McQuon School is if this was to fail and the state was to come down as like a home rule and really stick it to us, the likelihood of them sticking to that half mile, it's probably not going to happen. They're going to look at some other more attractive land in the town. And the state's going to say, we're going to put it here.
And they could do multiple, not all of it has to be within a half mile either. They could do some of it within a half mile and do a second zone elsewhere too. So, and it's not a scare tactic because this is exactly what they sought in the Milton case. And they didn't get the full, that they left that issue open. They sought in the Milton case, if Milton didn't comply, the appointment of a special master to draft zoning. So, and I represent a lot of towns that really, they qualify as an adjacent community or an MBTA community, and they don't have enough developable land within a half mile, so then they go outside of that half mile. That's a very real possibility, as Joe suggested.
The totality of various zones.
Correct.
Yeah, in the second filing that the town planner submitted, in regards to the consideration of MBTA, a half-mile radius, he pointed out to the state, if you look to the southwest, it's all wetlands because of the Burridge Pond. So with the limitations of having those wetlands hurt the town planner, who has an engineering background from designing this area, he came up with a great idea. He says, is there any possibility we could section zone and possibly encompass a different area? One of them would be the area around the L.G. Thomas School, and they said, absolutely not. So it was kind of, everything that had been asked, it was absolutely not, absolutely not, absolutely. It was just rejected every single time. So eventually that has to sink in, that absolute no is going to continue. But that was asked.
If I may, one more question. The planning board, is it one no vote, and the rest was, what was the term used? To move this forward?
I think they used the minimal amount of recommendation to get it back before town meeting. I thought they did a great job of saying, like, we don't like this any more than you do, but the town meeting should get a chance to vote on it.
And we have seen people saying
No
that,
action. There was a no vote and no action.
No, sir.
no, that was the first vote, and then they went back and had another planning board meeting in which they referred it to town meeting. So we have seen the narrative out there that we're doing this illegally, that we're not supposed to bring it back. We've checked with legal counsel, and they feel quite secure that we've done it appropriately.
So I just see there's a term recommended. Did the planning board recommend this?
The planning board voted to recommend to the select board to take action to bring it to town meeting. Because it's a significant enough of a change to say that it's not our board, it's not the select board, it's the citizens to be able to take that vote or make that vote.
If I may, I could read couple of sentences from the exact law, and Mass General.
We have town council
right here.
here.
Ask
We've got town council, we pay town
right
council.
here.
So I understand that there is the narrative out there, and we do take it seriously.
It's not an-
Right, but we have legal counsel here. He can speak, but he had vetted what we did. When the first vote was taken, he said to us, I don't think that first vote is appropriate. You probably need to have your planning board go back and take another vote, which is what we did.
I even questioned that. So as the chair of the planning board, I question why, can you tell me, please educate me, why is our no action vote, which is a normal, capable answer to any kind of a question on the table, why is this particular one of us taking no action not acceptable? And council quoted the MGL that talked about how it's a repetitive petition, which this is a repetitive petition. We're back here again. Regardless of how it came about, we are back at it again.
And I'm sorry, but we've got...
Definitions. Get definitions of terms. Is being recommended the same as no action. To me, it doesn't sound like it is.
It isn't.
Respectfully, sir, our legal counsel is here, and if you don't mind just waiting 1 minute, I've had, this poor woman has had her hand up for a couple of minutes here.
Thank you.
Yes, yep.
So I'm just wondering if you can explain how this isn't extortion quid pro quo, because to me it seems this is the definition.
Totally. Did you want to take that one, Trish?
All right, let me,
Totally agree.
so Tony previously, so this is why we had an unfunded mandate case. There's a statute that says that the state cannot pass any law that imposes a cost on a community without funding that cost to the community. But there are limitations to that law. Towns, and I've been representing towns for 30 years, there's been a lot of state laws that we say are unfunded mandate. Chapter 40B is now 56 years old. There's been several attempts to construe it as an unfunded mandate because we have to have essentially unchecked high-density development under 40B. That failed. Tony mentioned what we call the Dover Amendment, where they make us do accessory dwelling units, solar projects, daycare facilities, educational group homes, and the like, without any ability to say no. Towns said that was an unfunded mandate. Towns failed. There's been any number of it. It's a really difficult law. No one up here, I don't think, is a fan of the way the state went about it.
Nope.
I've been doing affordable housing stuff for a long time. If the initiative as originally designed by the Baker administration was a little more thoughtful, I think they would have had, my personal view, more willing partners on the part of towns. They didn't do that. They instead of using a carrot approach, they used a hammer approach. And they felt that that was the quickest way. Again, this spans the prior administration who designed it and the current administration that is enforcing it. It's not red versus blue. It is just, that's what they feel should be happening right now. This administration is telling us what to do. I don't think there's a single municipal government, including the most forward-thinking, pro-housing municipal governments, that think this is the way to have partnerships with the state. I think it's a bad idea. But towns have now tried. There were 8 towns who sued on the unfunded mandate question, and they all lost. So, and there are very few cases on record with respect to these land use statutes that the state continues to pass that have been successful in similar endeavors. So whether we like it or not, we're stuck with it. We've thrown everything we could at it. We litigated for several months on the unfunded mandate question. We had some resonance, but ultimately under the standard developed by courts over 50 or 60 years, we failed. So that's where this is. It doesn't, whether we think the state is pushing too hard on the home rule prerogative of towns isn't the question. The courts have said they're not. So that's kind of where we stand on that. Doesn't mean it's the right way to do government, but it is, according to the courts, a legal way to do it as of right now.
Okay, and we'll take, sure. Yeah.
With Lions, Park Street,
Yep.
I might be jumping a little ahead, but if this goes through, do we vote on the plans or how everything's being built? Or anything?
This is the vote on the plan, if you will. So what the vote is to adopt the proposed zone that the planning board has vetted and had the hearings for and all that.
And then, to be clear, because this is site plan review, well, there's two different permitting routes under this bylaw. There's site plan review generally, which is by the planning board, and then if a special permit is required for a small amount of them, then that would be the zoning board of appeals. Whether it's site plan review or a special permit, those are public hearings. That's where the public will get a chance to be heard if someone came in with a specific proposal, because the specific proposals aren't here. This is just the rules of the road. But when someone comes in with a proposal for 50, 100, 200 units, that will be a public event where the public has a right to participate, and neighbors would have the right to appeal those as much as any other zoning approval that happens.
Okay, great. We're gonna, can we just hold some questions and have Ms. Green just kind of wrap it up, and she's gonna fly through, she's not gonna do every single slide that we've got, and then we'll go back out to questions, okay?
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Get a little throat kind of going with the allergies going on. Okay. So our town planner already covered a lot of the points. So in the handout that you got by the door there, we do have an MBTA Communities Act fiction versus fact. And just go over like some of the zoning requirements. Again, the fiction is the town will have to build or require landowners to build multifamily housing in the zone. Not correct. That is fiction. Fact is the law requires that the town adopt zoning only that allows for multifamily housing by right, as Mr. DeFreitas described. The law does not require construction of housing by the town or by any individual or company. Local control mandated. Again, there's a fiction that adopting this means we have no local control over what is built. The fact on that is the town retains authority in some level of control over the district if it were to be voted through town meeting. The town retains the site review plan, which is through the planning board and the zoning board of appeals, which means the town still preserves the right to the control over the development. Under infrastructure funding, we hear a lot of people saying, oh, the town's going to have to put in water, we don't have water, we're going to have to do this and that. There is no requirement under this law for the town to fund any infrastructure at all, including water. Our water department does not have to dig up the roads and put in water pipes. Any of that is on, the burden is going to be on the developer. If a developer wants to come in and buy a piece of property that's within this zone, and not including anybody's house, if somebody is already a private owner in this zone, they are not part of somebody who can come in and take their home. That's just not it. We're talking about all the acreage land within that zone. So whoever the developer is going to have to come up with how they get the water, what are they going to do with the waste and the sewage. The town is not required to spend any money whatsoever, any taxpayer dollars, on infrastructure. Next page, the site plan review, again, that is under the control of the planning board and the zoning board of appeals. So it still has to go all through those processes. There's no speed lane here for somebody to just come in and start building housing. And preserving the town character, that we'll lose control over the character. Again, that is fiction. The fact is, it still has to all go through the process, the scrutinizing process of all the boards. So the town will have control if it's voted at town meeting. Again, and really to just get a really good idea of the zone. Now, the picture that's in there that's outlined by the yellow, it's not exact. You will find information on the town planner, and there is a page on our website, on the Hanson website, you can click on to go to an MBTA page, and there will be more graphs that will show more of this zone. But to kind of get an aerial view, again, the majority of this land is privately owned, and the owners of this land have said, we have no interest and no plans to sell or build anything on this land. They let us know that right up front. So somebody has to be willing to sell their land to a developer, and then have the developer spend all that money on infrastructure to build some multifamily housing. And if you want to really just kind of think about it, they talk about Route 18 in Weymouth. You know, look at all the apartments that are on Route 18 in Weymouth. But if you notice where they are, they're all centrally located right around the MBTA station. But if you go down the street, you go through Weymouth, the center of Weymouth, and you head down towards the high school, you don't see any of those buildings. It's all residential, single-family homes, nice neighborhoods. So that kind of gives you a visual. So if you look at this area, it's surrounded by forest and trees and undeveloped land. So if you put something in the middle of that, who's going to see it? Except for the people who are going to live there. So, you know, this is not different areas of Hanson where you're going to see all these multifamily homes. It's one area situated by the train station.
And to clarify the town administrator's statement when she says a majority of the properties, it's all except for one. All properties are privately owned except for one, which is the town of Hanson parcel off of Phillip Street.
Okay, and just to echo what the gentleman in the red shirt, and I will get to you and we'll take other questions, said, if we think about the areas in town that need to have some private investment to shape it up a little bit, it's the area that we have designated. This was targeted years ago by town meeting. Town meeting voted to make this an economic development area for the very reason that we've got the dilapidated, Ocean Spray building, and although it's beloved by people, it is right now a real safety hazard. And that gentleman had already gotten some permitting in place to have apartments. He never moved forward with it, but there was permitting in place. So, just when you think about it, if you think about the areas in town that need a little TLC, we'll be kind about it. That really is the area. It's that area right along there. And as Ms. Green mentioned, it's all privately owned except for that one little parcel. And it's really up to the individuals whether they want to do anything with it. Sir?
I think Mr. Campbell
Yes, sir.
was talking about that development, of those two buildings bringing in $120,000 tax revenue. Look at what was there. An abandoned industrial building, a burned down industrial building, and a little bit of a sand pit, which we're bringing in now. So with the town in control, two very nice buildings with commercial and so forth. And if that continues down Main Street, the beauty of it will be seen quicker. Because, I've lived here since 1962. I watched Ocean Spray deteriorate into the, bonfire that it currently is. And if that gets redeveloped, look what Rich Rosen did. He put in those condos right over by the fire station 2. If that stretch of land, which is in the zone, gets those houses, multi-unit houses in the back, even along the street, the town has improved. We have improved, and we're bringing in more tax revenue. And nobody has control over that, but the town, as to the permitting and to the type of buildings it's a win-win situation to go with this, or we can bang our heads against the wall, which is, the only thing good about banging your head against the wall is it feels really nice when you stop.
Okay, that might be the quote of the night, sir. Mrs. Sabah, did you have a question?
You guys can't do it if the state's against you. It's like, it's very frustrating. We vote for the planning board and the select board, but the state's going to tell us anyway. So it's a bummer. And thank you for all the stuff you do.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Sabah.
High Street. I also see in the future, I'm able to do that, I'm Nostradamus. The state will subsidize people that want to build on these properties to fill in the utilities and everything. The state will do that. That way, it sounds inhibitive to, that a builder is going to pay for all the stuff. The state will find a way around it, and they will subsidize the building of the infrastructure necessary for these buildings.
I don't know whether you're right, but what we're trying to deal with here is the facts that are known, so,
That
you know,
doesn't necessarily
yeah,
affect what's.
yeah.
And this is probably the right answer, getting back to the building department. This is probably the right answer, is to set our own zone and then just see what happens.
Deal with
That's
it.
what we're gonna
Yeah,
do.
Yeah, I mean, if you, in summary, you know, if we look at it, after we had the conversation with the Attorney General's office, in which they said, if you don't comply by the end of the year, we're coming for you. And by the way, as Mr. Talman alluded to, or even specified, we may end up appointing a special master to decide where the zone's going to be. You will lose money fighting us, and you're also going to lose grant money in the interim. It's like, I mean, it starts adding up. It's like, you know, and I think Mrs. Santalucia made a good point. If you do want to fight it, the state level is where this needs to be fought. We're one of 177 towns, the majority of which have passed this. The vast majority, and the remainder are all in the same position we're in, which is either discussing it with the AG and figuring it out how they're going to pass this. So, you know, to say we're on a shrinking island would be putting it mildly. But again, it's up to the voters, and this board and the planning board will do what the voters want us to do. We just want to make sure that people are well educated about the impact of the decisions that they're making.
Madam Chair.
You know what, Mr. O'Sullivan, and then Wendy, yeah.
Hi, I'm Joe Sullivan, West Washington Street. I have one question and then a statement. Where does the Conservation Commission fall under this program?
They would still be a regulating authority.
Thank you, that's all I need to know.
That said, I do
I have a
think...
clarifier.
Yeah, please.
I have a clarifier, because that's a very astute question.
Yeah.
And for anybody that doesn't know why you may have asked that, can you explain the reason why that's a very important question?
Yeah, it's a very important question because we have a development with 9 houses coming in off of County Road. It's called Zero County Road, several different names. And they want to put 9 4-bedroom houses in, and with above-ground septic systems. The whole area is underlain by hydrogeologists. They're underlain by clay and permeable deposits. It's surrounded on 3 sides by wetlands.
Yep.
And the Conservation Commission, God bless them, sent it to the state. They found 5 different violations in the original proposal. They sent it back, they came back, and they found like 3 more violations in the next proposal. Once it finally went through all of the bodies, the Board of Health busted them for putting in substandard fill that hold broken pottery and that kind of stuff in. So the bottom line is the Conservation Commission is very important to be able to deal with this. The project is slowed right down. I don't know what's going on with the Zero County Road project. I was going to stop by next year. I'll wait till later. So I'm very happy that they still have some regulatory authority under this act.
Yes, the Wetlands Protection Act still applies, Title V still applies, there's no superseding it. It's stated right in the requirements.
Sounds great. You got 5 pounds back by the state twice. Okay, my statement is, I'm going to support this. I really like it. I like your zone that you put in, which is also underlaid by Prince Watergate. But the reason I'm supporting it is because not supporting it, like the other gentleman said, is like standing knee deep in minestrone soup. It keeps you warm, but it gets you nowhere. So please support it. I'm waiting for the second photo.
Yep, I was going to say, that's a close second right there. And we have two more folks. Wendy, do you mind if, yeah, because she hasn't asked any question.
Amy, East Washington Street. I have to apologize, I'm not really an informed citizen of all this. I'm just going to ask a question about the water supply. You mentioned that the builder would be putting all piping in, and the town would be responsible for that. But is there enough water for the rest of the citizens?
If there isn't enough water, then that would be the case for the Water Commission to make, and they would not be able to build. But that's a separate conversation, and we don't have anybody from the Water Commission here, and they're separately elected board, but if there was insufficient water for something to be built, then the Water Commission would take a stand, they would tell the builder that, and we would have to not allow somebody to build, or have them either drill, have their own private well, which years ago the town had people do. But I mean, if you're talking about a 3-family, that would be tricky. Or if you're talking about something even larger, it would be even more difficult.
So you're saying if we say yes, this is zone, but it may never be used?
That is correct. We don't know what people will do or not do. And the other thing, I have to be honest, when this first came out, I, felt somewhat panicked, like like I think the general reaction was like, oh my gosh, 750 units, how would we even do that? But then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, look, organically, we've got conservation, the Board of Health regulations, we've got the fact that you've got to pay to do all of this, it's got to be accessible. If you look at the area, it's not all of it is right off of the road, so you've got some of that. You're not going to be able to park in some of the area because it's very wet. So the more you kind of peel away the layers of the onion, the more it's, and then the other thing is just organically, it's not all going to get, maybe none of it will get sold, but let's say it did get sold. It's not all going to get sold at the same time and developed at the same time. And, so, I think, things will happen in an organic way if in fact anybody does anything with that. My guess would be that likely whoever ends up buying the property that was formerly Ocean Spray may be the beginning of whatever happens. And who knows if anything will happen beyond that.
If I may, Madam Chair?
Yeah.
For instance, the Ocean Spray building falls within our flex overlay zone right now. So right now, that site, if that building was demolished today and someone bought it, they could go to the zoning board of appeals and they would ask for a special permit. That's what's different between the MBTA zone and our flex overlay. Flex overlay requires special permit. This would be an as of right, subject to site plan review. They could put the same type of buildings that they have now next door on that site. So we have, within the flex overlay already, that was adopted by the town some years ago, a flex overlay that allows for your mixed use, as you see there, or if they wanted to do like a Dunham Farms, where you have multiple buildings. So you have that ability. It's just one special permit that you can say no to, one's as of right, where you can regulate, but you can't say no to.
Okay, and we have...
Oh, and I was wondering if Mr. Nostradamus could tell me what the Powerball is going to be for this week?
I've got it written down.
Okay. Did you? Yeah, sure.
You had I came in late, and I apologize, but you said something about we're at the 5%, and we need to be 10%?
So
does this zone get us to 10?
So, because you have a bunch of different types of, so 40B, which talks about 10% affordable housing for every community. MBTA overlay district does not require that we put in affordable as a component, but we did put it in as a component because if you have some affordables in this zone, it'll help you on this one. So once you get to that overall 10%, then you meet the standard that's required through the Commonwealth. So if you have this MBTA zone and you do have some that are affordable units, it'll help you on that 40B. Yes, it'll bring up that number.
If it was built.
If it was built. But it's not a requirement within this zone. So in other words, any of these properties that are there today, what's known as 40B or comprehensive permit, if a developer came into any one of those properties, they could file under a 40B, go to the zoning board of appeals, put in a bunch of units. It could be single families, it could be multifamilies, it could be a mix of them. And they would pursue that permit. And if the town said no, then they would probably appeal to the state and say, well, Hanson doesn't have their 10%, and the state would probably give it to them. But again, completely different animal. So I know there's a lot of numbers out there and a lot of terms, and it can get confusing. So if we did affordable, and again, we're not required to, but we put a thing in there with a caveat that fee in lieu of, we create a housing trust. If someone goes into that zone and builds something and says, I want to do market rate units because I can get $3,000 per unit for whether it's a rental or $500,000 for a condo, they give the town money. The money goes towards the housing trust. The town of Hanson uses the housing trust money to go out and create affordable housing, whether it's, let's say, additional housing at Meeting House Lane, or whether it's expansion of something at LZ Thomas, or buys a piece of property in that same area because someone decides to sell and do something there. So it's not a requirement, but we have some language in there because, yes, if you throw some in there, it will help us on that other number to go from 5% and up.
And I'm sorry, ma'am.
One question, it'll be easy.
Okay.
This gentleman with the postcard pen was saying that if we don't do this, then we won't get grants. So with what you just said, I'm totally confused. If we say no, will we get grants? If we say yes, it seems like it's very confusing on if we would get grants.
It's not confusing at all, ma'am. If we say yes, we will get grants.
Yes.
They're competitive grants, so we're not always assured, like we're competing with other towns, but we've had a very, very successful track record of getting grants in the past. And in fact, we even got some approved just prior to getting our hands slapped and being told that we were not compliant anymore. We were told, oh, you guys get good news, you've got these grants, and then we were told, accept that you're not compliant, so we're not going to give them to you. So if we vote no, we absolutely don't get any state grants. It's cut and dry. It's not, there's no, we are required to sign, and I know you did come in late, but we did cover this a bit earlier, that every grant application now has a checkbox on it that says, do you swear under penalties of perjury that you are compliant with all Massachusetts general laws, and some even specifically call out 3A, which is this law. We cannot sign saying we are, so we are not eligible to apply for those grants.
So
in fact, Tony just had, give that example of the one.
If I may, yes, if the town of Hanson adopts this overlay district, we will continue to be able to get grant funding. If the town of Hanson says no to the overlay district, we will not have access to any of the grant funding. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Until such time that we become compliant, then they put us back in the queue. Now, who's to say that when they put us back in the queue, they might not be happy with us, but they'll put us back in the queue. So yes, so to try and simplify it, no zone, no grants. Yes zone, yes grants.
Yep.
I don't know if that helped it or made it worse.
I just don't know with your 5 and 10% area, how that fits.
That's a completely...
That's completely separate, ma'am. It's really not what we're voting about tonight.
I'll talk around.
Okay.
Thank you, Wendy.
If I may, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I'm in my office. If you got questions, please come find me. Second floor, planning department. I'm here 8 o'clock on. I'll be there tomorrow from 8 to 6. You can come find me, and I'll gladly try and answer any questions. And that goes for anyone in the audience.
Yesterday.
I was going to make that offer, but I didn't want to be that bold. Yeah.
This is probably a very, very stupid question, so I apologize. But if we decided to just get rid of the train station and just have it just go away.
No, because it would still be considered, which would be a Herculean, nearly impossible task. But let's say we could wave our magic wand, would still be considered adjacent, and you still have to comply.
Whitman would have to get rid of theirs.
We tried to be as creative as asking the state to build a drive-under garage for parking and then go vertical in their own parking lot. That wouldn't fly.
Right, Whitman and Halifax would need to get rid of theirs, which obviously isn't happening. So, did we, yes, Mr. Rothman.
TJ Murphy, County Road. Quickly, if we wind up in the situation where the state's dictating the zone to us, do they also get to write the bylaw?
Yes.
Special counsel.
Yeah, they would draft the whole thing.
So we could, or maybe would, lose the right to site review?
Yes.
Yes, their concept of site plan review is much more modest than what we've built into this bylaw. We put a lot of safeguards in. And with respect to site plan review, it is important to note that site plan review isn't like a special permit where you can say no easily. Site plan review is more to shape and condition projects, but it's an opportunity for us to take something that we don't like and at least cut it down to size, make it look better, make it safer. So we have an opportunity to do that. And if someone challenges a decision on site plan review, they don't just automatically get to overturn our site plan review. They have to prove that it makes the project unviable. So even though site plan review doesn't result in a no to developments, it's an incredibly valuable tool for Joe's board to say, hey, we don't like the way this looks, the way the drive is, the fire department doesn't like the way this is set up, we don't like the landscaping. All of that stuff is fair game and is a really valuable tool. The state will maybe impose a little mild site plan review, but they don't want to slow down projects at all. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is open to discussion, but we can do a lot better on our own if we're designing site plan review than if we leave it to them.
Does everybody understand what that term means, site plan review? Is there anybody that doesn't understand it? I don't have any problem giving you a quick synopsis of what it means.
Good.
So as a case in point, a development that went in 9 lots on Zero County Road, the planning board was heavy in regards to site plan review, mediation, arbitration, however you want to call it, and the developer was very giving with a lot of things that it asked. There was another development in town. We had it was a 12-lot division, 9 buildable lots, 3 drainage lots, and we were trying to go forward with a subdivision site plan review, and the developer changed it to a 40B project. So we lost a lot of oversight with that. It's the important point of some of the learning lessons that we're going through now, where a town as unique as the town of Hanson, it's viably important to have a strong police department, a strong fire department, a strong school system, a strong church groups, citizen involvement. It's also utterly important to have a strong planning board, zoning board of appeals, conservation board, all of the land use boards that are involved. I cannot wait for the post-fight. I'm hoping I can be one of the first that can sign a petition to change this, because none of this is set in stone. It is legislation, and all of that can change.
Michelle.
Diana McDevitt.
Diane, yeah, sorry.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say thank you for all the information you provided. It was very clear and helpful, as were the questions from the audience.
Yeah, thank you for all your questions.
Thank you. It really it helped me make my decision.
Great.
I want, if I might, one thing I want people to know, that what is the land within the zone, again, it's all privately owned. No one's gonna lose their house. The state's not gonna take away your land. It's all privately owned. You would have to sell it, or you would have to develop it yourself. And you would have the ability, if you chose to develop it yourself, to use the base zoning that's there, or the overlay district zoning. So it's all a case, it's all privately and private sector driven. That's all I have to say.
Helen?
Mrs. Best?
Best High Street. I am voting yes for this zoning bylaw change.
Thank you.
It's to our advantage any way you look at it. 'Cause I don't want it in my backyard. And it's done.
Did anybody have any other questions? Yes, sir.
Is next week vote in person only?
It is, yeah, it's town meeting, so it is in person only. Thank you, that's a good point. I certainly hope that people come to town meeting. It's 6 o'clock next week?
6:30.
6:30.
Next Monday, same place, same back channel.
Yeah.
Act surprised when you hear some of the same things being discussed, because not everybody's going to the informational forums. But we won't go into it in as depth as we have tonight, obviously, but we'll do a brief presentation. But yeah, it is in person.
That's up to Mr. Keeley, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
It's up to Mr. Keeley about how deep
Well, I think we've been allotted a very short period of time, and I think it's fair to say he's not going to let us go 2 hours.
We have October 2nd coming up, so.
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah, next Thursday. If you didn't have all the
This
questions
Thursday. This Thursday.
This Thursday.
Yeah,
No, I
yeah,
think
this
you said
Thursday.
next.
If you have any more questions, or you just, a sadomasochist and want to come back again, we'll be doing this, this Thursday. Mr. Lynn?
Yeah, just real quick. So with the new zoning, would the existing buildings already built be considered part of that number? Like the 2 new buildings built and the townhouses by the road? Those are counted in that count? The housing?
No, they are not.
No.
They're not?
Nope.
It has to be new?
Right, because the
Right.
zone wasn't created.
And again, like any other overlay zone or any other zoning district, we can revisit, make changes, as long as we don't make changes that make it non-compliant.
Yes, ma'am.
Neil Roman, Stonebridge Drive. My question is about the 40B, and you said about that would help with the affordable housing. What benefit does that have to the 40B?
So, once you get, any community that gets to that 10%, I'm gonna use 40B number, any project that comes in after that, you can say, sorry, we met at 10%, we're not interested. We're good to go. Now, so one thing that happens is, the more construction you have, those numbers tend to fluctuate, but you'll see, you can go online, into like mass.gov and look up 40B information, and it'll list also communities that have met their 10%, or what communities currently have.
Does it give us more funding if we reach that?
It doesn't necessarily affect funding, I believe, but it just means that you have more control of not allowing additional projects into town.
Thank you.
Maintaining the character of the town by the zoning that we have, setbacks and things like that. That's what that does. It makes it so that we're able to enforce the zoning without giving exceptions.
Yes, ma'am.
Robin Sparta, Monroe Street. I just have a quick question. Does the state, since you're doing this overlay zoning, do they have the right to deny what we put together? Or do they have to accept it?
So, I'll answer that. We went through a pre-process that they offer us to get this checked out ahead of time. There's 2 entities that have to review these 3A zones. One is at the State Housing Agency, HLC, as Tony mentioned. They've already approved that. The Attorney General's office also has to approve all zoning bylaws routinely done. This one will pass muster there. They work together to make sure this hits all the high points. My office has reviewed this. The state has reviewed it. Tony and Joe have put in a ton of work to make sure it meets the letter of it. I see like 0% chance of the state rejecting this. There's no reason for them. This gives them everything they want. And we're in steady communication with them. They check in with us. They've been talking to us. They've given us some resources to help us draft it in a compliant way. So what we've drafted, even if it might not be the zone that they would like to see, they have no grounds to deny it.
And one last thing, Milton adopted MBTA zoning in May of 2025 at town meeting.
I understand that, but, I mean, you know, Ms. Green stated about Weymouth. Weymouth's a city. Hanson is a small town. We want to keep this small town atmosphere. I've lived here now 28 years, and this is a great town. I worked with Tony, which I know that Tony has done a tremendous job, because he always does.
Thank you.
It's just, I hate being pushed into a corner.
Yes.
We all do.
That's what the state is doing.
We all do.
I think that's where my biggest concerns are, like, that are they going to change their mind, or is something else going to be added, or, because obviously I have trust issues with the state. I mean, it's...
If I can help, some of my own comforts in regards to that, it's a very, very, just another astute point that you made. And some of my own comforts with that are that some of the challenges that our town planner had in even creating this zone are actually beneficial. Some of the things that we have in town, because of our zoning, because of our enforcement, they are extremely beneficial that you'll never see that. I won't say never, sorry, it's a bad word. It'll be very rare to see the town of Hanson become overdeveloped. We just don't have that type of infrastructure at place at that level. Do we have the kind of infrastructure that's in place that can support some building? Yes, we do. We absolutely do. But we'll never see, I'll put my name on it, we'll never see significant overdevelopment of the town of Hanson without seeing some significant, I mean significant improvements in infrastructure. And that's as large as a sewage, that's as large as maybe getting water involved to get an answer about, do we have it? We're far from that. We are far from that. So if that helps.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming and for staying the duration. You guys get the marathon award. Thank you very much.